episode 2 of Failure at its Finest Hour. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a fun one to record. Just want to remind you that in the beginning of the episode, you will hear us talk about the podcast being called One Last Cast, but this was recorded before we officially changed it to Failure at its Finest Hour, and hopefully we can get that down for you in the next episode. But really do hope that you guys enjoy this. This was recorded very late at night, and we did have a few cocktails, so as the episode progresses, you might be able to tell, but it is a fun one. And you also may be able to tell that at the end, Aaron did change to his computer, so his audio did sound a little different, but it's all right. Again, we'll get better as we go. But here it is, episode 2. Welcome to episode 2. One Last Cast podcast. How you guys doing?
Eh? Doing good.
Different scenery for those who are
Different
watching
scenery?
on YouTube.
Good.
So if you enjoyed the first episode, welcome back. If you didn't, fuck you, you're not listening.
You didn't enjoy the first episode, you're gonna enjoy the second episode.
You know, everyone hates the sophomore album. It's always
Right.
the first
You
album.
just have to continue.
Exactly.
The sophomore album. You just gotta muscle
Just like
through it.
TV shows, like you have to muscle through that first episode, and then the second,
it.
third, fourth season, it's so fucking good.
And this one's
There's-
back with a vengeance. We're back.
It's
with
just
the
a lot of
vengeance,
trust. It's a lot of
It's a-
trust here.
Yeah.
you know, and it's gonna get even greasier and grimier than the
Seriously.
first episode.
It's gonna get so good. We're gonna get so good at this, and you're gonna enjoy yourself. And it's gonna be
Someone-
weeklies,
yeah.
something that you're gonna do every week. You listen to us, right?
Yeah, it's all about the players, you know. It's all about the players. It's all about everybody just honing in on what they're talking about, and that's what we're here to do. So, Tony, you've got the list of topics.
Well, so the first episode, obviously, we're still winging it. This is still something we did not imagine we were gonna do, and even me saying episode 2 is strange. And obviously, the first episode was wild. I mean, we talked about us believing in fucking Bigfoot, which probably made people not want to listen to us anymore because they
Hey.
think we're idiots.
There was the first episode.
Wait, we talked about Bigfoot? We talked about UFOs. We talked about stuff that we probably could have talked about for hours and hours and hours, but
Yeah.
we quit and we stopped. So we figured, you know what? Fuck it. We talked about Bigfoot. We talked about UFOs. Why the fuck shouldn't we talk about ghosts? Because ghosts is a great, for one, fantastic topic, and for two, I feel like we all have experiences with paranormal activity. So it's like, why not talk about it? And again, people might be like, oh, they're fucking these guys. You know, they're gonna be talking about shit that isn't real. But
Well,
no,
you know
fuck
what?
you.
We
We've
are
experienced
these
shit.
guys.
We are. I'm fucking Zach Baggins, or what's his fucking
Stop running! Stop running!
Stop running! Those parody videos are so funny. I think you sent one on like Facebook like years ago, and it still pops up on my my memories of those guys making fun of it. Dude, someone just touched my back. No way, dude.
I'm
dude,
so
I
fucking cold right now, dude.
yes. I'm so cold. I know you can't feel or see me being cold, but I promise you I'm cold.
I'm so nauseous, bro.
Did you just hear that door? But seriously,
It's like
we do have
some dude with like
we-
bangs.
we have experiences, and we figured if you stick with us for these first few episodes of us talking about this shit, you're gonna ride with us.
Oh yeah, man.
So we figured let's just get her going. And the first topic that I have is something that I experienced. Was the ghost biker.
The ghost biker.
The infamous ghost biker. And
Mhm.
it's funny because Chris and Dylan, Aaron, were you with us?
I was not.
Dude,
I
where were you
was-
in all
I
these
was-
scenarios?
I was-
Like,
Well, yeah. This
Chris,
one.
Chris, you and Dylan were there. You were sleeping though.
I was
That
grounded.
was,
I was there.
no, you were sleeping. Yeah, you and Dylan were in the back seat. You were sleeping.
Damn. I was
I'll
cut
give
with
it-
the drone.
the tail of the jogger once we roll into that. Cause
Oh, yeah,
that's-
we got-
that's
this is gonna be a
shortly
great-
after.
This is gonna be a great episode. And again, this is all I think all in Ontonagon County. So this is a great
Dude.
great history right here.
All
So anyways-
first-hand experience.
So it came back to me, Chris, and Dylan, and our friend Ryan Kuipenin. We went to see a movie an hour away because we don't have a movie theater in our town. And we were on our way back, and it was super late, caught a late show.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an hour drive, so Dylan and Chris were sleeping, and Ryan and I were coming. Ryan and I were both awake, and as we were driving, we saw, the reflectors on the wheels of a bike.
Oh, it's giving me chills already.
Well, as we were fucking driving down the road, pitch dark, it was like midnight.
Was it winter?
No, it wasn't winter. We saw the reflectors off of the high beams going in the circle of a bike wheel, opposite directions, and it went across the road and down into the ditch and into a tree line. But at the time, we didn't know the tree line was there. So we both were like, what the fuck was that? So we both kind of freaked out a little bit. We didn't stress yet. Turned around, we saw that they were sleeping, so we're like, okay, we were the only ones that saw this. So we pull up where we saw the bike reflectors, and we look into where it went down into the ditch, and sure enough, it's thick bush. If you drove a bike down the ditch and into the tree line, you would smash into the trees. It was so thick, and you would fall over. So we get out of the car. We get out of the car.
Was it
and
thick
we look.
bush?
It was a thick bush.
Oh, nice.
THICC.
Like a 70s porno.
Yes.
Thick bush.
So we get out. We look. There's nothing there. So of course we're freaking out. I think you guys had woken up probably at that point.
Yeah.
And till this day, we have no idea what the fuck that was. Again, imagine you're driving down the road, and like 100 yards, maybe 200 yards up ahead of the road, you see these reflectors, and that's all we saw. We didn't see the spokes. We didn't see a seat. We didn't see handlebars. Went across the road, and it was just like the fucking bike reflectors on the wheels. Go across the road, down the ditch, disappear. And still to this day, we have no idea what the hell it was. And I know Ryan's gonna listen. It's gonna be like, "Yes, dude! Oh my god!" Because we still talk about it because it's just insane. It's unreal. Like we still don't. And someone was like, "Oh yeah," I think I told one of my buddies, and he was like, "Yeah, that was Drew and I." Brady was like, "Yeah, Drew and I were messing with you guys because I had told the story."
Sure,
I was like, "Fuck
dude.
you!" If you went, he was obviously joking, and because I told him, I tell everybody, if it was a bike, if they had went down that ditch the way it did, you would have smashed the fucking tree line and fell over. You could not have driven a bike into that tree line.
Yeah. Do you remember exactly where, like, if we were to drive that?
It was by the dump.
It was right there.
It was by the dump. It was either right before Greenland or right after the dump in Greenland. It was a straight stretch, and I gotta say it was probably by Wilbur's farm. So it was on that stretch, like right by the dump.
Gotcha. So I guess for those listening who know, I guess the stretch from Greenland to Ontonagon, within the Ontonagon County line, there is a story, and I guess I could probably start this story now, because Dylan and Chris were asleep for that portion. So the I guess the story of it is there's this, like, I guess, urban legend that has been kind of come up through history. I don't even know when the first occurrence of it was. But you drive past the dump, garbage dump, waste management in crossing over from, the landfill, some would call it, from Greenland into Ontonagon. And the story goes, you'll be driving at night, no particular weather pattern, and within the amount of time that it takes for you to step on your brakes to realize something's in front of you, and somebody, a ghostly figure in an orange jogger suit. I don't know why orange, but the color orange, a full jogger suit. We're talking track suit, like pants with the tie in the front,
full
nine. That figure will appear in front of you just in time for you to realize to press your brakes, and boom, you hit them. And there's been a handful of people that have, like all unrelated to. That's the crazy thing. Our English teacher in high school told us. The local historian told us this. Both two like unrelated parties, like they know who each other are because it's a small town, but they never have really crossed paths and like thought to like dream up this story together, I guess. And the English teacher in high school, he supposedly hit this jogger one night, and the story goes, you go out to look to see if there's any damage on your car or anything like that. Get out of the car, no damage, no body. And that's right around the area that you guys saw that the bicycle reflectors. So really weird, weird circumstances.
So maybe it makes you think about like the place we grew up and the shit that we seen like in a common area.
Want to get closer to the mic, Chris?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. That's better.
When you think about like we grew up in the UP and we all saw like a bunch of weird shit in the same like area. It was like a focused area where we all saw like the same weird shit. And you think about the same thing on the Utah flap, like what they call it in Utah, where they saw like this strange amount of paranormal activity in a focused area. And it's kind of weird. Like, are we living in a like close to a tear and a dimension where there's like a different amount of paranormal activity that happens near us?
I get what you're saying there.
And there are multiple examples of this stuff happening. And Chris, your first-hand experience, I think you have the most
the literal proof,
prime example of this shit happening. And that was when you were younger and you were in that play at the lighthouse in Ontonagon.
I didn't even think about that. Until now.
And for people that don't know, this lighthouse in Ontonagon has a lot of history with it, and there is a local historian in the town that always there's I'm not going to say hundreds, but there is a lot of stories about a lot of strange things that happen at that lighthouse. And Chris, again, you have firsthand experience of that strange shit going down in the lighthouse.
Well, yeah, I mean,
well, don't say it like that. I mean, you have a pretty good fucking example of.
It's creepy, man. It's just creepy shit.
Do you remember anything about it?
Not really.
So I remember there was.
I remember like people. I just remember more people talking about it more than I did.
Yeah, because there wasn't necessarily like that crazy of a story. It was just
all like it's all ghost stories about the museum and the lighthouse.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the picture.
I know. Yeah. Yes, of course, the picture to me is real, but there is a lot of things about that lighthouse that are just make believe, that are made up stories and stuff like that.
Just to give it that much more like significance,
spooky significance, and it's like there's like the satire of the Ontonagon Lighthouse being haunted. I mean, yes, I believe it's haunted, and I don't believe in all those like ghost stories. I never did believe in them, and then I saw the picture of me and my friend as actors in the ghost story, and there was a face behind us.
Yeah,
and
that picture. So Chris was in a play in I think it was like middle school or something. You guys were super young.
12 years old, maybe.
Probably. I mean, I think you were with high schoolers during the play, but is it like Halloween? It's got to be around Halloween.
Yeah, they had like a haunted tour of the house where they would like tell the history of it, and then they would have people like scare you as they're telling you the history of the lighthouse.
And after you guys had done your act, after the people had came in and done the tour, you and your friend had gotten a picture together because you both were acting in this play.
Yeah, my mom took the picture of us just arms around each other in front of a room. in the
And
room,
behind you.
and it was in front of, like, unbeknownst to her or anybody, it was in front of the room, up front of the, like, the captain's quarters with his wife. Like, that room was behind us. We were in the doorway, and she took that picture, and in that picture it's like dark, but there is like a face, apparently. I haven't seen the picture.
The picture is, I think your mom had told us that the picture is in the light at the museum.
Have you seen it?
I have not seen the picture because we were young, and I feel like I had only heard about the story after we had gotten older, and I swear your mom had said that picture is in the museum in Ontonagon. But when was the last time you've been to the museum?
I haven't been there since I was that old, since that picture was taken. I mean,
so I guess we're gonna have to actually go back to the lighthouse and find this, or the museum, and find this photo, because it still exists in, like, the form of, like, a developed photograph. Like, it's not a tall tale. It actually exists.
I just name dropped, so timestamp wherever we're at, because I know who has the fucking picture.
Well, we only timestamp when we're talking shit about somebody.
Well, Bruce Johansson has the fucking picture.
We can name drop if we're not saying bad things about the individual.
I'm not saying nothing bad about him.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. We don't have to timestamp when you're talking about somebody.
Well,
so somebody,
if it's not in the museum, he has it.
Yeah,
he has. If anyone has it, he does.
Mm-hmm.
So that photo exists in Ontonagon County somewhere, and we're pretty sure we know who has it. And I don't think your mom still has a copy of it. I think it was the only one went to the museum, as far as I know. Which she probably remembers it, so we can ask her. But I've never seen it. We've always talked about it, and we're like, oh yeah,
I've never seen it either.
And check it out. But we've never done it. So that's
picture.
Next Christmas, if we're all together, that's where we're going.
Seriously. I mean, because I feel like we have all, like, obviously heard about the story, because Kim, I feel like it has to be true, because your mom, I think I've heard her talk about the story, like, multiple times, and if she actually hand delivered the picture to somebody or gave it to the museum, I mean, it has to be there, or it has to be somewhere, because I feel like your mom wouldn't go out of her way to continue to tell the story if it never happened. Especially, we're older now, so she wouldn't tell us that lie.
Well, yeah,
because I can see if we're like 10 and she told us, but I've heard her tell that story as an adult.
But at the time that you guys were, however.
What's that, Chris?
Go ahead, Aaron. What were you saying?
I was gonna say, however old you guys were at that time, it was at least, like, at least 10 or more years ago, probably like 12, 13, somewhere in there. Yeah. Like, photo editing skills in Ontonagon, Michigan were not what they are now.
Right.
So there's nearly no way that she would have that doctored just to have it in the museum. Not that type of person for sure. So
no.
It just blows my mind. Like, my parents, like, pretend like it never happened.
And maybe that was more or less, like, them protecting your sake of going insane if you ever did see the picture of something fucking behind you.
True.
Because, once again, it happened when you were very young. I mean, you were, like, let's say 13 at most.
Maybe 13.
And I can't see myself, like, showing a 13-year-old a picture of them with a fucking figure or a face behind them. So maybe as we got older and she doesn't have access to that picture, she can tell us freely without being worried about us trying to find it. And I don't know. I just feel like at an age like that, you're not going to want to show your 13-year-old son or 12-year-old son that there's a possibility that there's something
paranormal
behind you, because that would fuck you up. Like, you could probably, I don't know. I feel like maybe could be messed up seeing something like that at a young
It would
age.
it would have definitely got under my skin at that age
Yeah,
to see something
definitely,
like that.
definitely.
Which,
And your mom is obsessed with ghosts.
Oh, I guess I never
So
thought about it that way.
So I feel like if she saw that, she immediately would run to someone like Bruce Johansson or the museum in Ontonagon to give that picture to them.
The most smartest, like, paranormal, historical expert there is. In that town.
I mean, we're not saying we believe
and that's
everything he
more,
says.
but that's probably more proof of the things that they, was all conjecture, no proof up until the point of that photo surfacing in the lighthouse, because that lighthouse, there's hundreds of tales from that lighthouse, and there's never any, any scrap of proof. But that photo is the one thing that would kind of give, at least the historical society a leg up to say, no, this is like a legitimate thing. There's something going on here.
Yeah.
So, and I think some students from, similar to the Paulding Light, which is another episode, but similar to the Paulding Light, I think some Michigan Tech students went to the lighthouse at one point as well. I could be wrong.
Those fucking tech students, man.
Yeah, really just, really just nose in the books, just getting it done out here in Ontonagon County.
I just think the UP on its own has a lot of like tragedy and like trials and tribulation of like American life that is overlooked. Like a ton of people died trying to live where we live, and there's like tons of history and like all these like these ghost stories. Most of them are real because these people fucking died trying to live here.
Yeah,
and survive. It's crazy. Like,
so
you think about the lighthouses, man. Like, they would hire families. Like, a guy would take his family out and live at a lighthouse for as long as until they died. Crazy.
Yeah, especially Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Did you guys see that film, The Lighthouse?
No, I
you guys
don't think
haven't seen that? Oh
no.
Man. Anyways, random side note.
You wonder why these like lighthouses are haunted, man. It's like a guy takes his family out to a lighthouse for like 5 years and he just goes crazy.
Honestly, because
that one lighthouse out in Standard Rock Lighthouse, that's like
jerk it off.
30 that lighthouse that we talked about, like potentially like trying to drive out or get a boat and go out there, the Standard Rock Lighthouse, you guys know what I'm talking about?
That's way
out
in the middle of fucking lake.
Standard Rock, baby.
That's like the point though, like somebody had to be out there,
right? And
in the
there's no
time,
yes
like
they would
hurt,
pay,
they ran out of food, like
they would pay grown ass adults to go out there, not fucking families.
Yeah, one guy.
And that's the thing, back then you'd have to actually manually light the light in the lighthouse with, I mean, you wouldn't, nowadays you have the blinking light, just constant.
You have power. You
didn't have that back then. Yeah, you didn't have power going out to those places like that lighthouse in the middle of nowhere. You had to actually manually light that motherfucker every single night for ships that were coming in. So that's why, Chris, you were saying they would go insane, because they would have to stay out there. And when you're out in a remote location like that, you got to get fucked up in the head.
I mean, it's like the shiny.
Yeah.
It's like the overlook.
To a certain extent. I mean, some people would think that would be nowadays I would consider that to be a
vacation.
A vacation luxury.
Oh, I would love to rent a house.
But I do understand like the type of like situation that'd be. Like you're completely isolated, like 100%. Like especially with like bad weather, any of that type of stuff. Like if it was like 50 to 80 years ago, like there's like not a lot of technology where it's just like I can just like pull my phone up and start like watching,
right.
Like I can call my wife, I mean, I can't do that. I mean, like
no,
you can't just like pull, YouTube up or, Hulu, Netflix up. Like you can't do any of that. Like,
no.
Which like I don't really think it's that big a deal, but like, you know, like just being isolated in general would suck. But you're with a bunch of people. Like you're not by yourself. Like
Yeah.
those dudes would go out there and there would be like 10 people in that fucking White House. It wouldn't
Mhm.
just be like one person. There you got
No,
like,
because
a
those
group of, like,
buildings
10
are
people. It was a
pretty
big-ass building.
large. Yeah.
It wouldn't just be one dude. So you'd have a group
No.
of people with you.
No.
Like I mean, like it would suck, especially like during the big, like, you know, the big gales and the big storms. But like other than that, like it won't be that bad.
Well, we've done our fair share of not only Bigfoot hunting but ghost hunting as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, no.
I think we have to talk about. Remember when we went to the show? So the Shoberlines had bought at the time that house in Greenland. Remember that big ass mansion?
Like the one on the hill. It's like on the side of a hill.
Was it? Yeah, I do remember that. It was old. It was an old house.
Very, very old house.
I remember my
and,
mom telling me that when she was a kid, she thought it was haunted.
Yes, and so we had coordinated. You know, of course, this is during our ghost phase.
Pre-COVID.
That we had wanted to go inside of it and see if we could, you know, investigate a little bit. And we were really good friends with the owner's kid, and we had went. I think all of us with Liv and Emily, right?
Yeah.
Liv and Emily were with us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dan too. I think.
Dan was with us.
I think he
Yeah, he
was.
And so we had coordinated this night. We were all like so excited. And I remember, Chris, I think your mom was even telling us not to do it, like not to go in.
Really?
And we had went in
Was
and
I allowed
doing
to
the
stay out late that night or something?
yeah. There was a problem with you being there. I remember, but Emily, like with Emily there, we were like, oh, Kim, it's fine.
Well,
We had went and we did like, you know, the classic, you know, ghost hunting stuff. We had recorders in like rooms, and you know, we would all be quiet and ask questions, and we would leave recorders in certain rooms and then leave those recorders in the room while we'd be outside. Remember, we were sitting out by the car.
Yep.
And we had phones going inside that were recording what was happening inside. And I can't remember if we had originally then went back in to get the recorder, and we were back out by the cars, and we were listening to it back, and we had heard some shit like on it.
Yeah, we did.
And that was maybe our first suspicion. We were like, holy shit, this could actually be haunted.
right.
And so I think we did it.
Went.
I think we did it a couple
for
more
sure.
times. And Aaron, didn't something fall?
Yeah. So
By
that's
you.
that's like later in the story.
Cool, very suspect.
I guess from my perspective, I remember us going down in the basement, which is really dingy. It had a coal room because there was a coal burning furnace in the basement at one point. You know, just super dark. We're in there with like not even like phone flashlights, just absolute junk to record with. I had like an old MP3 player.
You also kind of passed up the part of the story where allegedly in the basement, multiple people apparently, you know, as
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
people died in that fucking basement.
Yeah, it was the guys that were excavating.
This is not a
'cause
joke
it was
either.
all
Like, this is like 100%. Like someone died. Like people died in that fucking basement.
because they were using dynamite to blow out the rock because
Yep.
to like dig the basement. I do remember
Exactly.
that. That's funny that you mentioned that because we never talked about that in like the moments leading up to pressing record. That's actually insane. Yeah, I think it was one or two guys died in like a dynamite blast blowing out that basement.
Because
Which is
again,
insane.
for the listeners, that area there's a lot of, was it limestone
I
or
forget what it was.
just
It was some
rock,
sort of hard
just-
rock.
right? And the only way you could do something like that was to blow it up with dynamite because you couldn't fucking couldn't bust out your pickaxe and Minecraft that shit. So you had to get TNT. But I remember
TNT.
I don't remember, I guess, because a lot of things happened that night where we had set the recordings inside, like I said, then we came out, would listen to them back, and then put them back in.
Yep.
And I remember once we had started to hear things, and we were kind of getting a little sketched out. I remember we were outside listening back to one of the recordings that we had from inside the house, and we heard like a pound. Do you remember that? Inside the house, on the front door.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were freaking the absolute fuck out because of what was happening, and we couldn't believe it. And then I remember at the same time, in like a matter of seconds, upstairs in the window.
And we were outside at this point.
Outside.
Shining flashlights on the windows.
I see you. Through the window.
We saw somebody fucking walk past the goddamn window.
Oh,
like
the attic, the upstairs. Because there was 3 levels of windows in that house, right? There was like the attic windows, and then there's like the second floor windows, and then the main floor windows, and then there's obviously a basement on top of all that, or underneath all that, I should say. But and that's like, I guess once again for the listeners, that's where like the story comes into play of supposedly this house was owned by like a wealthy mine owner in the area. There's like the Greenland mine or whatever, and they had a son, or maybe it wasn't the mine owner's son, but it was like some family throughout history that lived in that house, had a son with werewolf syndrome, covered head to toe in fur, even on his eyelids. And his room was the upstairs room, or I guess the attic, which is where we through like somebody, I think I dropped my phone or a flashlight, and I saw that there was a hole in one of the floorboards, which this is like one of the most eerie things to me when we were in there before we saw somebody walk past the window after we got spooked. We pulled up that floorboard, and there was some red thread and like a couple other like little knickknacks and like a newspaper clipping from the day that Pearl Harbor got attacked.
That's weird.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, there's old ass.
Like somebody had like stuffed that in a floorboard to save, and then that made like the story of like the Wolf Boy, and it, like even more real. And I guess the story with him is like they kept him up in that attic because he was a freak. And the kids would like drive their bikes home from school, like the Greenland schoolhouse. They'd drive by there and they'd throw rocks at those attic windows because they knew that kid was a freak and that he was up there, I guess. I don't know, let him go to school or what. But
at the end of this whole thing ended up being our friend's dad and their sister ended up pulling this prank on us that
drove a moped to the house.
They drove a moped over to the house. They were in the house fucking with us basically, and they were making all these noises, and they fucking just absolutely like they scared the shit out of us basically. They were making it sound like there was a bunch of people in the house. They were making all these noises and shit, but I remember before they got there, I remember hearing things on these recordings that like there was like actual like
no, we picked stuff up.
There was shit on the recordings that was like you couldn't explain. It was before our friend's dad and his sister got there, and there was like just sounds of like footsteps and like doors shutting, those types of like things that were going on like before they showed up.
It was almost like they like played the joke on us to like hide the fact that,
because because they played the joke on us just to mess with us, but like at the end of the day, like they know like the history of the house, like people legitimately died
building that house,
wherever the footprint of the house was, like and the biggest thing was when I remember when everything started to happen, we were up in the attic talking talking to the kid, you know, and it like ended up being, you know, Dan's dad, our friend Dan, his dad and his sister. They were just messing with us. But like I said before, like we were sitting outside and we had, you know, I think it was we had one camera in like the ground floor, and there was one camera in the basement, and we picked up like sounds of, you know, we couldn't explain anything from both cameras. I remember there was like a door shutting, and there was like footsteps and like a door slowly shutting. Like you could hear it like shutting, like just sounds that weren't like I couldn't explain.
And just like
they showed up,
and that 2x4 that had fallen over.
Yeah, that's
by Aaron.
That's what I was getting to. So
they can't because the story was with our friend's dad and his daughter. When we were in the attic, he was the figure that we had seen outside.
Yes,
and we were outside and we heard the pounding. His daughter was pounding on the door, and then the dad was up in the attic, and he had walked across the window. And that's what we had seen. So we didn't actually see a figure. It was actually him, and it was his daughter pounding on the door. And then when we were in the attic, I don't know if you guys remember, but they made footstep noises while we were up there, and we freaked out, and we were like, oh my God. And then the daughter threw a fucking rock on top. Remember when it hit the ceiling, or it hit the roof?
Yep.
And as soon as that rock hit, we all just fucking were like, fuck this, and we all ran outside.
I do remember.
And then we found out it was him.
So, like, I remember the timeline. We had the recorder set up. We're outside waiting. We're shining flashlights on the windows. We see Dan's dad. And this was like after we had, I think that was after the point where that was before they went to the house. Or we were up in the attic. I guess the timeline's a little muddy, but I do remember being up in that attic, hearing the rock hit, and us all bolting down, because we're in the attic, so we were 2 flights up, so we bolted down 2 full flights of stairs, blasted through the front door, got outside, and at that point realized, okay, it's Dan's dad. And I didn't even realize it was his sister at the time, but I remember like, screw this, like I'm going up there, like I'm gonna, like I want to know, like where is he, and I remember going up. I went through the front door up to the 2nd level, so not the attic, but being on the 2nd level, I was looking around and I saw an extension ladder. There's a little balcony. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. There's a little balcony that didn't have any like walls or anything. You walk out a door and there was just probably like a 6x6 balcony. And I looked down and there was an extension ladder where Dan's dad had climbed up, because he's a builder. He's got extension ladders laying around. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's them. So I walked out into the hallway, and this video is on one of my old phones. I don't know if it's at my house in Ontonagon or if it's buried somewhere in my closet here, but I have a video recording with my like phone flashlight on, and I'm like panning around with my camera, and the floorboards are a little squeaky in there. They're a little, loose. But I was standing still and I was just panning my camera back and forth, and it was like a 2x6 leaning up against a wall, and it was leaning like flat, like it wasn't like kind of and in the video you can see the board just like slide off of the wall and onto the floor, and I just took off. I went right down the stairs.
Because that was at the point where we didn't know that it was Dan's dad. So
exactly.
When everything was falling into place, we were like, holy shit, we need to get the fuck out of here. Because we had actually thought that we were amongst not humans.
Yeah, the other.
So we were very, very scared. And I think it's a good thing that it ended up being Dan and his daughter, because I feel like if we didn't know that it was them, we probably also would have been very severely traumatized by that experience, because a lot of shit happened where, again, the footsteps coming up the stairs when we were all in the attic, we all heard that. It wasn't just like hearsay, like, oh my god, I heard footsteps. We literally all heard footsteps coming up the stairs.
And they were like, they weren't quiet about it. And
Yeah.
you're also in a
It was
3-story
very
building in the
it
middle
was
of
very
nowhere.
obvious.
And it's
Mhm.
all old wooden, everything's creaking. Like, it's just like, if there's movement in that house, you're gonna hear it because it's empty, everything echoes. Ugh.
Because I remember we specifically asked him because we had gotten, we had known about all the noises and stuff before he had showed up, and we asked him like, oh, what all did you do?
Exactly.
Like, I walked up the
Yep.
stairs when you guys were in the attic. My daughter threw the rock
Yep.
on top of the roof. That was me that you saw going across the attic
Yep.
on the top floor.
Yep.
That was
Exactly.
my daughter pounding on the door. And then we were like, wait, what about like,
Before
blah,
that.
blah, blah. And he was like, no, we just showed up like, 20 minutes ago or
I know.
15 minutes ago. And we were like, okay, well, there's still unexplained shit that was going down in this place. And bringing back the newspapers
Yeah.
that we had found.
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty incredible in itself. Even if we didn't hear any noises and stuff, like
Yeah.
seeing newspapers stuffed into the floor that were
Yeah.
from when Japan fucking attacked Pearl Harbor. That's insane.
Well, and it's the most
So-
damning thing about that specific detail is not the fact that there was some remnants of somebody who lived there years ago in an attic. It's the fact that if you store things in an attic, you're not prying up the floorboards
No.
to store something extra. That's like, it was like a little pile of little things that was clearly like placed there individually. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to store my box full of Christmas decorations and then throw this thread in this very specific newspaper clipping. I don't know. And I don't know if people back in the 40s in Greenland, Michigan did time capsule related shit. That's the only thing I could see that some kid, or I wouldn't imagine an adult would do that. So it brought more sort of gave more steam to the story of that there was somebody that actually lived up in that attic.
Yeah.
Really eerie. Ugh.
So, what do you guys think of? So, I mean, like, I personally, like, I'll be honest, like, besides that night at that building, I've never had, besides one time, like an experience with like ghosts and like paranormal activity. Because like before that, like, I'll be honest, like before that, like there was maybe a few times my whole life where I like legitimately like experienced like something like that. Like, and it's crazy to say this. Like, I know you guys know this, but I'll say it for the fucking people listening. So like the time that I remember specifically, it was when I was a little bit younger, and when it was like before we graduated high school and like all this other shit. I remember I was riding my bike back from I was still pretty young at this point, and I was driving by the old grade school. And if anyone doesn't know, the old grade school was built in fucking 1912. And there was this thing where this old science teacher basically died there.
Oh yeah.
Basically haunted the old, high school. Or I know you guys remember this, but essentially, like he died, and he was like haunting the third floor of this high school, right? And like at certain times of the year, you would be able to see this dude in the third floor of the high school, and like no one like believed it. Like no one wanted to ever go up to the third floor in the high school. Like even like I remember like when the school was still open, like nobody ever wanted to go to the third floor
it was
for any
locked
reason whatsoever. Like nobody ever wanted to go up there. Like why? Like there was no fucking reason why no one ever wanted to go up there. And even all the teachers, like they never wanted to go up there. They never wanted to do anything. They never wanted to talk about anything. Like there was no reason why. But I do remember one time when I was younger, I was riding my bike past one night, and it was a little bit later. And I remember seeing this bright light come from the school. This was after the school moved to where the high school is now, so it's completely abandoned. And I remember driving my bike past, and I remember I saw this big flash of light come from the fucking school, and I was like, man, like, what is that? And I remember driving past, and I remember seeing like this bright light come up again, and I remember seeing like a fucking shape of a body like in this fucking third floor. And I remember seeing like the fucking eyes of this person. Like I could see it for some reason because I was like pretty close to the fucking building, because I would drive my bike past this building every time I went home at night. And I remember like looking up and like wondering what was going on up there. I remember seeing this like figure of a person up there. Like I could see the eyes of this fucking thing. And I remember this like thinking to myself, like, what the hell is this? This is like way before we had cell phones, so I couldn't like pull my cell phone out to record it, because like that was like before we had fucking phones and shit. Like I was like, I couldn't like
you had no way
take a video of it. So it's just something like I just remember, and like I just remember like I legitimately saw this shit, and it was just crazy for me to even think. And it was just like reminding me of like all those times where like even the teachers, like when like we would go to school there, like they didn't want to go up to that third floor.
I mean, that third floor was literally like deadbolt locked. Like you couldn't even get in there, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
you could never.
Like, literally like deadbolts. Like,
I remember.
Yeah.
We took a field trip. You know, you look at my fucking hand. We took a field trip up there one time, and it was like during the day.
Yeah.
And then like, they made this big deal out of it, because like there was this big fucking like, you know, like I don't want to say it's like fucking conspiracy, but like they did during the day. There's like went up there, and like everyone was sketched out, because like this dude was like, you know, he was a teacher for like 30 plus years, and then like this guy just randomly died at the school, and like he's just like allegedly haunted. Like he was like in this fucking school.
Well, there's something about him that it's Doc Ora.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's his name.
I
And
remember
there's
the story.
That's it.
It's really, really fucking weird. We're talking about the same guy.
Yeah, Doc Ora. I couldn't remember his name, but you said it.
So when I had graduated high school, I forgot what it's called, but we had that thing at the library where all the like Catholic students in the public school gathered and had like a ceremony or whatever for graduation.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a handful of us, and you know, our family and stuff would go. And the library, Ontonagon again, is just rich with history, and inside the library are old pictures of it's essentially a yearbook on a wall.
Yeah.
It's pictures of kids graduating classes from like the fucking 30s, because like Dylan said, the old high school was built in 1912, literally the year the Titanic sank. And there's pictures in the library of the faculty, and like Dylan said, Doc Ora had taught at the school for a very, very long time, like 20 plus years. And on the wall, I remember we met in this room before we went out on stage in the theater, and I was looking in this room because they had these pictures on the wall, and sure enough, the faculty was up. And so I was like, holy shit, maybe Doc Ora's up here. Sure enough, he is. So I'm looking at pictures throughout the years of Doc Ora, the guy that had died, that it supposedly had been haunting the third floor. And every year I had noticed, going up in years, that he hadn't aged at all. And I could tell that it was a different picture, because you might think, oh, but if maybe you're just using the same picture, you know, it's old. I could tell in the pictures that it was a different picture, from his tie pattern, because obviously it's black and white. His tie pattern, how his collar was aligned.
Yep.
He never aged for like 10 to 15 years. He literally looked the same person. And the last year that he had lived, so the year he died, he had still taught in Ontonagon. And that last year, he looked so fucking old. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like he had aged 30 years in 1 year. And again, it was the same. It was not the same picture throughout the years.
Yeah, and
So for some weird fucking reason, he had just aged horribly the year he committed suicide.
Yeah, and are you gonna tell the story of how the whole thing, like him going to Chicago and all that stuff?
Yeah, he Dylan, you said he had died at the school, but he actually had went to Chicago. I don't know for
Randomly.
yeah, I don't know for what. Probably for what I'm about to say, but he had went to Chicago and he had jumped off of a building in Chicago
Oh, I didn't
and
know that.
and killed himself.
Yeah. So the story is that he he was like a chemistry teacher, I think it was. He was like
Yeah,
a,
it was.
Yeah.
like that was like his main thing, and they actually like the chem lab is in there where you have like the little glass case with the gloves to stick in to pour chemicals and stuff. That's still up there. I remember seeing that when I went up there in like 6th grade. But he would always show up to class like early, hang up his coat, hang up his hat, and the students would say, "Hey Doc, what time is it right now?" And he had like a pocket watch, and he'd pull it out. This is how old this story is. He'd pull out a pocket watch supposedly, and say, "Oh, it's 2 o'clock, whatever, time to start class." And he had done something with chemicals or something, and he had a bunch of nervous system damage at one point, and he would show up to class like after that incident, but he had like some nervous system like issue, and regardless if it was like some pre-existing condition that eventually started to take hold or whatever, but he developed this stutter, and the kids would say still after this thing, they say, "Hey Doc, what time is it?" He'd pull out his pocket watch, but he would start, he said, it is 2:30 time to start class. And that was like the last thing that those kids that were in that class remembered, because one day I guess he told them the time, started class, and then put on his coat and hat, walked out the door. Maybe it was after class, and that was the last the kids had ever seen of him. He was gone, like nobody knew where he was for a couple weeks, and then somebody found out that he had gone to Chicago, and I think it was like somebody told me, I think it was the local historian told me that there was an article in a Chicago paper
There is. Yep.
and I've never seen the article. I'd love to go because they have all those papers probably at the Ontonagon library. I would assume because it's related to Ontonagon history. And there was a newspaper article that said that dude just showed up in Chicago, got to the top floor, went to the roof, and just jumped off. And that is like, I mean, that is the most bizarre bit of history.
Yeah.
And all of us right now, we've, this is all like firsthand experience, secondhand knowledge. But if we were to actually go back and dig through there's definitely a newspaper clipping somewhere. I don't know where it rests, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Let's try to find it. But there's moral of the story in this episode. There's a lot of weird things that can happen in that county. That's it for episode 2. As you can tell, we're still rookies and don't know how to close a podcast, but we'll get better. But hope you guys did enjoy listening, and we'll see you next time.